Hey everyone, this is Linda Bennett back with you and more Metaphysically Speaking. And this is on open metaphysical questions and answers, anything you want to ask. And I've got lots of articles that we need to discuss about medical research and all kinds of goodies. Okay, but we do have a caller on the line. Caller, first name and comment or question.
Name is Doug.
Okay, Doug, what's your question?
My dad recently passed away, and I was wondering, is there any unfinished karma that I may need to deal with him?
Boy, is there ever, as you well can feel. I'm feeling the relationship between you was not the best ever, and you want to make sure that from your here's the problem. Not everyone is on your spiritual level. Some people are higher, some people are lower. Your dad was much lower, and he resented you. There's a subconscious awareness that all people have of each other. Like sometimes you meet someone, you instantly like them, and you feel a warmth and an old home week kind of energy. Some people you instantly feel repelled by, other people you feel instant fear. That is because your soul recognizes their true being, what they're all about, and your relationship with them in the last lifetime or several lifetimes. Your father, I'm feeling, was a very selfish, self-centered, he's the world kind of person. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so how could you, when you don't respond that way, when that is not your soul energy, it'd be like speaking to someone from another galaxy when you don't know the hand movements, and you don't know the vocabulary, and you're so fearful that you can't tune in psychically. It's like the two of you were from two different gigantic universes and galaxies. So you couldn't possibly finish off whatever karma you think you had. You may have less than you think. You might be thinking, maybe I had this father because I was an absentee father in another lifetime. And that could very well be. That maybe you were too involved with your career or running a township or doing something that you felt was important. You didn't take good care of your wife, and this is return karma. It could also be that that was the case, but not the case now, but that you were an example to him of a kind soul needing a good father. And you were his opportunity to turn away from being selfish and towards being kind, loving, supportive, caring, nurturing. And his free will chose to do the wrong thing. You were his opportunity to do the right thing. So as long as you learn to let go of all of the unhappy, unfulfilled emotions by understanding that he didn't have it to give because he chose not to give it, and the more he chose the bad behavior, the more ingrained and normal that seemed to him, even though it wasn't normal, but he justified it because it seemed comfortable. The more you realize that you need to let go of any requirements or wishes or dreams you had about having a wonderful father, and let it go in the light. Your karma with him is now at a minimum, if at all. Why? Because the karma has been satisfied between the two of you. You may come back together in another lifetime where he might be the gardener and you see him to say hello, or he'd be a neighbor across the street. But if you let go of the emotions that attach you, then your karma with him is over. And the lesson of unkindness and remoteness and disregard for responsibilities towards a child are now learned. Because you would never treat anybody the way you were treated. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you have learned that lesson. I would suggest you find a good rebirther in the area. I do not use hypnotism. I basically don't do rebirthings anymore, but find somebody who does not use hypnotism, because when you are hypnotized, your free will is basically taken away. And I've talked to hypnotherapists about this who try to claim, oh, you wouldn't do anything under hypnotism. Well, that's not true. The Americans learned a lot about hypnotism in the Korean War when we had soldiers come back who were brainwashed. And that is what cults do. They brainwash you. They brainwash you to get your money. Churches brainwash you by telling you you have to get to heaven. The only way you can get to heaven is through Jesus Christ or Muhammad, or by walking around the wall in Israel, in Jerusalem. That is not true. You get to heaven when your soul is ready and you've finished your earthly reincarnative processes and lessons and the astral ones. So you are someone who's learned a lesson, and if you remember the goodness, not of your father, but of the learned lessons, and be grateful for learning those lessons, you're going to be ahead of the game. Do you think you can do that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good luck in finding a rebirther. And again, they cannot use hypnotism, and I'm glad you called. Call back in the future. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Okay. A friend of ours has Lyme disease. And you, of course, know that Lyme disease comes from ticks. It started out, believe it or not, in Lyme, Connecticut. And it has existed in nature for quite some time. But people weren't schlepping through the woods and the mountains and the highlands and the lowlands as much as we are now. And there were too many people in an area, so if there are too many people, you're bound to run into difficulties. And it's from the white-tailed deer. There is also something that was in the paper recently that has made a resurgence. And I will pronounce it for you phonetically. Babesiosis. It's something that was widely recognized years ago. Almost no one ever got it. Then in certain clumps of areas they got it. And then it was basically sort of wiped out. It's caused by a protozoa that invades the red blood cells and can cause malaria-like illnesses. Now, I saw my father having a malaria attack when I was a little girl. He got malaria when he was in North Africa. He had been involved in the D-Day invasion, shot in the head, and wound up in a hospital in Italy where they did great surgery, and then he found himself in North Africa. Surrounded by cobras, scorpions bigger than your hand, and all kinds of ticks and mosquitoes, etc. But he wound up with malaria, which is a terrible shaking and almost a losing of your consciousness, and in some case complete loss of consciousness, high fever, sweating profusely. Then you get freezing cold, then you're back to sweating and heat. It's a very sad thing to see, and he was very upset when he saw that I was in the room, because he didn't want me to get frightened. It didn't frighten me. It felt like I had seen it before, and I was about 5, 6, maybe 7 years old. But this babesiosis was named for Dr. Victor Babes, a Romanian paleontologist who in 1888 identified the disease in cattle that had fever and blood-tainted urine. The first human case was not recognized until 1957. It is mostly in the Northeast, spreading to the upper Midwest, where it is increasingly recognized as the cause of flu-like symptoms or a summer ailment or summer flu. Babesiosis